Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an instructive game to share with you from 1961 on the white end Bobby Fischer playing against Tigran Petrosian. We have on board a Caro-Kann Defense. Mass liquidation in this one. The primary focus in this game will be on the endgame. We're working with the Karpov variation. Many minor pieces are exchanged in this one. The structures remain solid in this opening middle game phase. Fischer castling queenside here. Bishop for knight exchange. Dark square bishop exchange. This is the main imbalance. We work with knight versus bishop. Still some slow improving moves. King b1, rook d8. And some expansion now on the queen side. A move you don't want to play here. Castles running into mate. More queenside expansion. And there's an eye here on f4 that's taken away. Right about here is the first moment where there's a decision to be made after the move b4. So let me throw this one to you as a pop quiz. How would you reply to b4? Feel free to pause the video. All right, in the game, c4 is played. Pretty much the best move for a human. Computer says you could also get away with capturing on b4. If you're capturing on b4, you're asking for trouble. You'd be gifting black a file to work with. There's a nice little bonus that just happens to be there along the way. A knight c3 move, taking advantage of the pin. It's more about the open b file here. Shouldn't be giving black that kind of activity. Castling straight away won't be a wise choice, but eventually black will first flick in g6 castle and get this activity. I wondered also about the capture with the a pawn instead. It's better to take with the piece in this scenario. The knight, queen, maybe even the rook can pivot there. If you're taking with the a pawn, this pressure along the a file, there's a convenient defender in the bishop. Posted here, here. a2 is well supported with the bishop. So in this game, best way to respond to b4 is with c4. Knight f6, and now the offer of a queen exchange. It's declined at this moment. We have c5 in this game. Why not queen takes pawn or queen takes queen? I'd like to touch on each briefly. If queen takes d4, there'd follow queen takes a5. We're on the b pawn, and there's also a discovery right around the corner. Bishop move hitting the queen. Not really such an appealing line there for Team Black. Why not queen takes queen? You could play in this way, but I believe the general feel is that you don't want to allow one of your own pawns to be fixed on a light square. That's the case now for black. This pawn chain could eventually be a target for this bishop now. So black's approach here, let's try and undermine the support of the queen. c5 on board. Fischer's reply is with queen g5, targeting the pawn. How to react to that? Well, a little trick. Trojan has a trick up his sleeve. He plays h6, and Fischer at this stage has, I guess, a change of heart. He does not go in for this capture. With h6, Trojan is prepared to give up a pawn for positional compensation. It's not the first time he has this idea in this game to give up some material for positional compensation. Fischer ends up capturing on c5 here. Now, what would happen if queen takes on g7? Well, there's only one move, king e7 here. And now this queen is stuck, and white will have to rely on tactics in order to rescue the queen. She's ready to be trapped after rook d to g8. She's short on squares. There's a couple ways out tactically. From here, I'll point out each. You could take on c5 or play bishop g6, taking advantage of this pin. I'll highlight one of these lines, one where we capture on c5 here. And this would be black's way out. Rook h to e1. If you go in for this queen trap, it would actually be white who is winning. And based on the tactic, rook takes e6, rook e1, queen takes knight, and the black king will be running for his life. Okay. Also, after this capture and queen takes pawn, rook here, here's what black can play. Queen g5, getting the queens off. He's down a pawn, but has nice pressure here on the h-pawn. How are you defending that exactly? Withdraw the bishop. We can exchange rooks. Knight e4 is a pretty irritating move to meet next. It also has this excellent outpost on c5. Nice dark square control for black in this ending. Rook h1, not so appealing. There's an idea to double up, increase the pressure on h3. He's prepared to give up a pawn for this positional compensation, this positional pressure and dark square control. Fischer, in response to the h6 move, takes on c5. We get a queen exchange. White temporarily up a pawn, but it will be captured soon enough. White cannot hang on to it. The next important moment is right about here. Pop quiz. What move do you think Petrosian played here? Feel free to pause the video. All right, this is not some trick question. It may seem like there's only one way out of this issue here, but we do not see in this game knight captures bishop. That is in fact the top move going into material balanced rook ending. Black has a different idea in mind. Plays rook d6 here. He has an idea to give up a pawn yet again for positional compensation, but Fischer does not bite, does not pursue that line. In this game, bishop captures rook is played. Before playing rook d6, this is what Petrosian calculated. This line here, where Fischer could win a pawn, he was prepared to have his pawn split, keeping his king open to the c5 square with tempo, and check this king position out, as well as knight position. I have no doubt before he played rook d6, he had this position in his mind, and there is no way white could be better, really, with these strong posts. The extra pawn white has, this connected passer, its presence is not felt. In fact, it may even be white who has to be a little bit careful. I'm going to put on just a couple more moves. If you take here, you may end up dropping the c-pawn. If you just keep the tension, hang on, just like that, knight takes b3, black is all of a sudden winning. All right, a benefit here in having such strong pieces in this ending, keeping the opposing king boxed out. In this game, we do not see this line. Fischer does not go hunting for a pawn. His reply to rook d6 is bishop captures rook. This allows the black rook some activity, but also the white rook has some activity. We're trading blows. Rook takes a, rook takes f check, king b3. Petrosian blunders here. He plays rook h2, goes hunting for pawns. Best is considered knight d7. Next up, king d6, knight c5 check, and then rook takes b2. You get that b2 pawn, these guys become isolated, very weak. Now, Fischer tried to interfere with knight d7, playing c5 here, cutting out king d6. Knight e5 is strong, followed up with f6, securing the knight. Next, black is ready to approach the pawn. Notice if you try and approach the pawn now, there's rook takes knight, king takes rook, and the pawn cannot be stopped. All right, in this game, we do not see knight d7. It is rook h2. And notice in this position, no check. It's not going after pawns just yet. In this game, c5 is played. If you go straight in for the check, this is where we can see this valuable b2 pawn won. And even though in this position, white is up 2 pawns, there's compensation. All of these pieces very well positioned. Not the dream for this king to be caught on the edge here. Rook activity. Pinpoint the c-pawn, the h-pawn, maybe get to this third rank. considered holdable here for black. Fischer is not going to allow the b pawn to be captured so easily. So before inserting the check, it is c5. Now he's ready to give the check, and there will not be a forward reaction. You'll have to demote the king, run in reverse. Black's reply here, king d8. Notice if rook takes h3, there's no pressure on the b pawn anymore. This is where you can think about inserting the check, next taking the b4 pawn, and we're into a pawn race where white is almost certainly going to be the one who wins out. All right, from here, voluntary retreat. Next up, no rook a7, rook b5, another clever move here. If you play rook a7, there's yet again this knight d7 into c5 idea. You save the pawn here, there's knight e5. This is considered holdable here. What's the point here with rook b5 then? Well, if black now tries knight d7 in this position, it immediately backfires. You play knight d7, there would simply be c6. And where does this knight go? You have to undo your last move. It's frequently the case, a rook positioned on the same diagonal as a knight with one square separating them dominates that piece, does a good job here taking away 4 of the knight's options. So that would be counterproductive in this case to play knight d7 here with the rook still on this square here. Black's try is with rook takes h3, and now we have a check on b8, b7, and in the game, king c6 is played. If the king goes back to c8, we track down this pawn. This guy was won. All pawns would be passed. Forget about pawn races here. Black may have something more to be concerned about, and that is a check here, king stepping up. Maybe you don't even need a rook in some cases. It could just be a bishop and pawn delivering a mate. This is a huge post for white rook, cutting off the king. Black has to be concerned here about maybe even getting mated. All right, in this game, we do not have king to c8. It is king c6. Pop quiz. How would you respond here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, at the moment, there is not a good discovery for Fischer. But after king c4, there certainly will be, and there is a serious mating threat that can now not be stopped. Petrosian here resigns. The threat, rook a7, e7, rook takes pawn, all would unleash a discovery for mate. Black cannot interfere with this. There's just a silly check to delay the inevitable. You take the rook. Next up, rook a7, for instance, and that will be checkmate. So, what'd you think of this one? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.